Hello, today is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025, day 725. I have quite a robust update. I'm sure that you heard about the meeting with Trump and Netanyahu yesterday and the potential plan on the table in terms of a deal for Gaza. In the meantime, the Israeli military has continued to strike in Gaza City. At least 13 people were killed there. The death toll over the last 24 hours has been in the dozens. The Qassam brigades also said that their fighters hit Israeli forces and vehicles that were in Gaza City, targeting vehicles, soldiers, killing and wounded them. This was a report. I don't know the death toll yet. This was inside Gaza City's Tal al-Hawa neighborhood. This happened yesterday. The group reported that their fighters opened fire at close range. They threw explosives into two armored personnel carriers, detonated a bomb against a Merkava tank, causing casualties among Israeli soldiers. The group also claimed on Sunday that it blew up an Israeli Merkava tank with the powerful roadside bomb south of Gaza City. So we'll hear more about that, I'm sure, this week in the occupied West Bank. I heard from on the ground that the Allenby Bridge was open for a few hours today to passenger traffic, not commercial traffic. I have not seen this reported in the news yet. Fear is that now the border crossing will be used as collective punishment. So if the Palestinians don't agree to certain things, Israel will close the border. I heard that news from directly on the ground. Israeli forces raided a town near Bethlehem after killing a resident. Confrontations broke out between Palestinians and Israeli forces in the village of Beit Fajar, south of Bethlehem. This was after a number of troops stormed the area. Soldiers fired tear gas at the crowd during the raid. They stormed the home of Mahdi Mohammed Awad Dirie, who was killed earlier today by Israeli fire. The army claimed that he had carried out a car ramming attack. Israeli snipers positioned themselves on the rooftops of residential buildings around Dirie's home while soldiers interrogated his family members. The Palestinian Prisoners Society has said that Israel is escalating its targeting of Palestinians who were released in prisoner exchanges earlier this year as a part of previous ceasefire agreements, carrying out arrests, interrogations. The group said the latest case was Hanan Barghouti, who was detained from her home in Khobar near Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. At least 40 people who were freed in January and February have since been rearrested. 16 still remain in custody, most under administrative detention, meaning they have no charges or trial. In Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu agreed to the most recent U.S. plan for a ceasefire. So this is coming out of the meeting yesterday. So Netanyahu agreed to bring an end to the war in the territory. Trump said that it's beyond very close. There was a joint press conference. According to a Palestinian source, Qatari and Egyptian officials have handed over the White House plan to end the war in Gaza to Hamas officials in Doha. Hamas has said they're going to consult on the deal before they respond to it. They want to consult with other Palestinian factions. Trump and Netanyahu both warned there would be sharp consequences if Hamas rejects the deal. Netanyahu has suggested Israel will finish the job by itself if there's a rejection. Reebok has demanded removal of their logo from the national football team in Israel. Israeli media has reported this. The Israeli Football Federation has been instructed to remove the Reebok logo from the national team's football kits. In terms of Israel and Qatar, there was a three-way call between Trump and Prime Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani of Qatar. Netanyahu yesterday apologized for Israel's attack, violating Qatari sovereignty in the recent strike on Doha, and for killing the Qatari security official. An Israeli apology was a key condition that Qatar said had to happen for them to continue their role as mediators. Now, Netanyahu's apology is not a favor, but a basic right, said the Prime Minister of Qatar. This was in an interview with Al Jazeera. Al Thani said Netanyahu's apology is one of the most basic rights. It's important that his apology is a pledge not to attack Qatar again. Egypt and Turkey are also going to be participating in the meeting of the Gaza mediation team. If the plan is accepted, Arab and Islamic countries will welcome the participation of mechanisms to support the Palestinians. The plan is in the early stages. I have a lot of details about the plan, so I'm trying to go quickly. A cessation of hostilities is clearly stated as a cause in the plan, but with the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza requiring clarification that must be discussed. So we do know Qatar is resuming the role of mediator, that they do confirmed that Hamas is studying Trump's now 20-point plan. It started out as 21 in the news a few weeks ago. So let's talk about that. This big meeting at the White House, Trump, Netanyahu, they met yesterday. They said that they had a historic breakthrough in terms of peace in the Middle East. They have now delivered what essentially is an ultimatum to Hamas. This is Trump and Netanyahu. They're warning Hamas that Hamas must accept the 20-point peace plan or else they will face the consequences. Now, it was clear Hamas said they hadn't even seen the proposal when this meeting happened. They were not consulted. Mohammed Mardawi, a Hamas official, said the group was later briefed that the Qatari and Egyptian mediators had met with them and briefed them last night to provide the group with the peace plan. So the Guardian reported about Trump essentially giving Hamas 3 or 4 days to respond to this plan. The proposal was announced at that joint press conference. So Trump said, we have one signature we need, and that signature will pay in hell if they don't sign. So in other words, threatening Hamas. The president had already made clear that he supports Israel continuing the war if the proposal is rejected. During the press conference, Netanyahu told Trump, if Hamas rejects your plan, or if they supposedly accept it and then do everything to counter it, Israel will finish the job itself. In other words, without the U.S. Trump said Israel has his full backing. Critics have said that Trump really shot himself in the foot doing this press conference because Netanyahu literally contradicted the peace plan in the press conference, and President Trump didn't say anything. So there's a lot of articles that talk about that. BBC News reported that in a Telegram post, Netanyahu said that he had absolutely not agreed to the creation of a Palestinian state during his meeting with Trump. So the U.S.-backed peace plan postulates that once Gaza's redevelopment is complete and the PA is reformed, the conditions may finally be in place for a credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. Netanyahu said we'll recover all the hostages alive and well, while the Israeli military will remain in most of the Gaza Strip, which, of course, the permanent presence of Israel has also not been a part of the majority of plans on the table. Now, Netanyahu announced he does support the 20-point plan, but then, of course, contradicts it. Al Jazeera reported the plan is not an offer, it's an ultimatum. We've heard an inkling of what would happen if Hamas does not comply. Trump specifically told Netanyahu if Hamas does not accept, he's going to do what he's got to do. That means essentially a green light for intensifying Israel's action plan in Gaza, wiping the board clean from all wonderful promises according to the 20-point plan, including Israel's phased withdrawal from Gaza, self-governance of Gaza, the return of people from Gaza, and an absolute confirmation that the people of Gaza will not be removed. Those are all the things that would be lost if the plan's thrown out the window. So what is this plan? What is it all about? The idea is that it would be run by a technocratic transitional authority headed by Trump himself. The on-the-ground lead would be Tony Blair, is what I've read and heard. This requires the militant Hamas organization to release 48 hostages that are still held. Very few, fewer than half, are thought to be alive. Within 72 hours of a ceasefire coming to effect, all of the hostages would be released. There would be a gradual withdrawal of Israeli military forces to a buffer zone, which is desperately needed by 2.3 million people. There would be a surge in humanitarian aid. Gaza would then be run by this post-war transitional authority staffed by apolitical technocrats headed by Trump himself. That's where I read that Tony Blair would lead the government locally. The proposal requires Israel to release 2,000 prisoners, including some that have life sentences. Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar have supported this plan. They might be able to put pressure on Hamas. A Qatari official said Qatar would be meeting with Hamas and Turkey on Tuesday to discuss the plan. Trump's peace proposal welcomed by world leaders, but Palestinians remain skeptical. So Palestinian Authority responded and said that in general they support the efforts, but that this would essentially result in a violation. It would be essentially a document of surrender. So this is Fatah, the political party that backs the Palestinian Authority, had said that this would be surrendering if they agreed to this. They're eager to protect innocent lives in Gaza. The Fatah political party, which again is behind the PA, said that it is ready to cooperate with all parties to secure a ceasefire with humanitarian assistance, the release of captives, Palestinian prisoners, and to establish international mechanisms to safeguard Palestinians. These are other important things that would be included. The release of the frozen tax funds that Israel is holding from Palestine, a complete Israeli withdrawal, steps to restore unity across Gaza and the occupied West Bank, and East Jerusalem as a part of a two-state solution. So that's Fatah's position. Now, Palestinian factions that are allied with Hamas have planned to have essentially initially rejected the plan. We haven't heard Hamas's formal response, but Islamic Jihad, for example, has said the plan encourages further aggression against Palestinians. And the Qatar prime minister said that Trump's plan really needs clarification. A lot of people are saying there's 20 points, but the points aren't clear. So they need to get into the details. Qatar has said Hamas acted reasonably and promised to study the plan. Now, I would point you to The Guardian. There was an op-ed. I really wanted to read it to you. It's by Josh Paul, the first official of the Biden administration who resigned. He's calling the Kushner-Blair Gaza plan a moral atrocity. Essentially, he says, you're denying complete self-determination. Like this would become a U.S. occupation of Gaza. And he goes on and talks about that, the extraction of wealth, the benefit, the U.S.'s role is just another form of colonialism in this regard. It's a really, really strongly written and powerful op-ed. I would call your attention to it. In the meantime, there was a missile attack yesterday on a Dutch cargo ship that caught on fire. 2 mariners were wounded related to the Houthi rebels. They've not confirmed that it was them who attacked the ship, but that's what's suspected. The Trump administration also yesterday evening deported 100 Iranians back to Iran. This was on a U.S. chartered flight from Louisiana. And meanwhile, on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, the UAE envoys pressed Netanyahu to accept Trump's peace plan and abandon any plans to annex the occupied West Bank. A number of European and Middle Eastern leaders have welcomed the new U.S. peace plan. I've talked about that quite extensively. Turkey appears to have joined Spain, Italy, and Greece in monitoring the international flotilla, which I had some news about that. But the UN, despite the implementation of Council Resolution 2334, which calls on Israel to immediately and completely cease all settlement activities in the OPT, including East Jerusalem, that report reviews the period between June 18th and September 19th, and it talks about how Israeli authorities have destroyed areas and structures. I wanted to close and let you know that we posted a Prayers for Peace blog today about how occupation harms not only the Palestinian Authority, but also Christians in Palestine. This was by Jerusalem Voice for Justice. I'd encourage you to read that. We put it out as a prayer on our Prayers for Peace blog. Signatories include the former Patriarch of Jerusalem, Michel Sabah, Tal Lahana of the Greek Orthodox, Munib Yunan of the Lutherans, and many, many others. So may God continue to go before us. May peace come quickly in the name of Christ. Amen.